Today, I'm going to cover probably the number one question that I get asked, and that is what actually is scale up? So people kind of get the perspective that startup is that kind of courageous entrepreneur who sees a problem in the world with a set of people and comes up with a really amazing idea how to solve that problem. Well, that's kind of what people think it looks like from the outside, and that's the romantic ideal of startup. But any of you who've been entrepreneurs and have been in that world, you know it's a little bit more chaotic than that, and things don't always go to plan. Well, scale up is actually even more challenging for most. And the question that I get, or I kind of pose back to people, and they say, listen, I want to do a scale up. I want to grow this business. I want to make lots of money. I want to create freedom. Is, do you really want to do it? Because you can create a fantastic business, which is almost a lifestyle business, which gives you income, gives you some freedom depending on what you're trying to do with it, particularly if you have only a small team that you need to manage. But scale up's a lot more than that. So when people ask me that question, I have two responses. First and foremost, scale up is about the ability to build teams. It's about leadership. It's about building culture. It's about making sure that you can create something that in its own right is like a machine. It just works like clockwork. And that's about bringing together the right people behind the right vision, behind the right mission, so that they are literally, taking this idea that you've got and taking it to another level because they believe in it and they're doing it with such precision and such passion. So that ability to build a team, to be able to bring people in is the first piece. The second piece is probably the one that most entrepreneurs find the most boring. It's about processes and it's about systems. So you've got to be able to have great people in your organization, but you've got to basically make sure they know what they're doing. And I would go as far as you have to almost continually improve those processes over time. It's a concept called Kaizen. And if you can do that, then what you're going to have is a machine, a business that's running so well that actually even as markets change, as customer needs change and all those sort of things, you're going to have a stunning business that's performing for you, creates value, gives you the lifestyle you want, potentially could be sold one day because it's so valuable, and it also has a degree of sustainability because you're constantly improving these things. So as you can see, probably the summary of all that is that scale up is complexity. It's not, you want to make it as simple as possible, but you're adding more complexity. And the way to get through complexity is to make it as simple as possible. So there's this quite strange yin and yang between the concepts. But if I think about it, when I get involved with businesses, there's a number of reasons why they fail, and I can get it down to 5. The first one is that the business runs out of cash. So what's failed there? Well, the financial system has failed there because they haven't been able to predict the cash flow coming into the business and then have enough runway to be able to make the business viable over a period of time. So that's the first reason. Second reason is they stop listening to their customers. And this is a big one. Stop listening to your customers, sales decline, revenue declines, profit declines, and then all of a sudden you haven't got a business. And the reason that lots of entrepreneurs and founders stop listening to their customers is not because they don't care about their customers, it's just that they forget that the customer changes all the time. It's always evolving. So what you were kind of helping a customer with, the problem you were solving when you started your business, may not necessarily be the same problem and the same nuance that it is when you're going through scale up. So you've got to get that constant dialogue backwards and forwards and keep that relationship really fresh and strong. Third reason, I kind of touched on this in terms of the kind of definition of what's needed for scale up, but it's this failure to deal with complexity, this failure to look at things that are more chaotic as you're starting to grow your business and trying to simplify those things as much as possible. 2 parts to that, as far as I'm concerned. One is the internal part of that complexity. So that comes back to having more people. And remember, people have lots of different dimensions to them. There's the part about what they need to do to produce. But there's also the emotional side, how they feel, how they show up. So you've got to be very rounded and have empathy and all those sort of things to be a great leader. And then the external side of that is, as I said, the markets are changing massively. What you're seeing right now is technology disruption across most industries. You've got kind of ways of working changing. And that level of stuff needs to be understood. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient, you need to be focused, but you also need to be open-minded to all of those different changes. The fourth reason, and it kind of comes back into this idea of building teams, is lots of entrepreneurs don't understand the importance of culture. Now, there's a really famous saying by Peter Drucker, which is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I believe that in part because I think if you haven't got the people and you haven't got them really motivated, clear, on fire, then it's very, very hard to scale a business. but you also have to have a strategy. You have to know what you're doing. And strategy, as far as I'm concerned, is simply the ability to know where you're going and the choices that you decide, to make to get there. And what can happen sometimes is people change their strategies all the time because they think it's the strategy that's broken. More often than not, it's not the strategy. It's the fact that they haven't implemented the strategy particularly well because they haven't really landed that people part. And that's the bit that culture comes in. And then the last area, and this is kind of more around the individual, the person running the business, that entrepreneur, that founder, is they start to focus more on the challenges that they see versus the opportunities. And this is all around mindset. So what I often say is, the same thing can happen, but it's how you deal with that thing that makes all the difference. And many entrepreneurs, particularly when they're starting to see this complexity, they're starting to see things become a little bit more out of control. It's much easier to be able to run a business from your garage like Larry and Sergey did when they created Google than it is to have a team of 30, 40, 50 people out there which you can't see. And if you think about that, the only way you can scale is to bring those people in and to bring that capability into your organization. So as the entrepreneur, you need to learn to trust. You need to let people do what they can do. They're brought in to grow your business. You need to kind of unleash them. And you've got to try and lose that sort of feeling that you have to control everything, because what's really important, if you see some of the most amazing business leaders and entrepreneurs in the world, like the Bransons, for example, they're out there doing what they need to do, but they're not managing every detail of their business because they've actually got good people in there who buy into what they're doing, and they've got processes and systems to be able to allow all that to happen. So that's what Scale Up is. I just wanted to give you a quick kind of perspective of what I think it is. It is not a simple definition, but ultimately it's about one thing. It's about business growth. And I believe that all companies, certainly the ones that have kind of gone through startup, have been good companies at one stage. And the whole thing you want to be thinking about is, how can I make my good company a great company? And the way to do that is to think about growth. Growth has to be happening. If you're not growing, you're dying. And the way to drive growth through Scale Up is bring in the best people, become the best leader you possibly can be. Bring in systems and processes, listen to your customers, listen to the market. And if you show up as the best version of yourself and you take into account all of those things, then that Scale Up wilderness, that challenging place, can be significantly easier and certainly a lot more fun.